Good morning, children. I am B. Yunus Ramola. Once again, I welcome you all to the English class. We were saying something about the lesson which deals with Mount Everest. So, now in the picture, this is Mount Everest, and I said on the Zoom class that these are glaciers. Glaciers are snow covered peaks. This is avalanche. Avalanche is a mass of snow or ice falling rapidly down a mountain. So, the title of the lesson is The Summit. This is the fourth prose in your textbook. So, you'll be getting synonyms, antonyms, short answers, paragraphs from this lesson. So, be very careful. So, this lesson deals with the mountaineering. Yes, people going on an adventure, expedition, exploration on a mountain. Here, the summit means the highest point. Summit is the highest point. So, regarding the author, we saw that it is Edmunds Percival Hillary. Hillary, along with Hillary, along with Tenzing, were the first to reach Mount Everest. Yes? Okay. So, this prose is an excerpt. Can you just remember what this word excerpt means? Excerpt is a passage or quotation taken from a book. Hope you do remember all these things because we have seen a few slides during our Zoom meet, and I want you to remember or recapitulate what we have learnt earlier. So, Hilary, along with five of his six men, along with him, there were six. They started their journey on Himalayas to reach Mount Everest, the highest peak. So their journey started on May 28th. And I told about a word called col. Col is the lowest point of the ridge. So if I say lowest point of the ridge, definitely you must be familiar with the word ridge. Ridge means chain of hills or mountains. So who were the six men? It was Edmund Hillary, Tenzing, George Lowe, Alfred Gregory, and two Sherpas. Sherpas means the tribal people who were living in Nepal. Their names are Pemba and Angnyama. And Pemba was ill, so the five of them they started their journey and they covered nearly 27,900 feet. So at this point, 27,900 feet, Hilary and Tenzing they just made a tent and their companions, three companions, who were they? George Lowe, Alfred Gregory, and one Sherpa, that is Angnyama, they returned. And these two people they made a tent and they went inside the tent. They crawled and they wriggled into their sleeping bags. So I have shown you a sleeping bag. They were wearing warm clothing and they wriggled. They just crawled into their sleeping bags. And the next morning at 4 a.m. they started their journey. They were ready to climb. At what time? 4 a.m. on May 29th. So this is the words of Hilary as such. So he says in the first paragraph that in the early morning they just ignited their stove and they had drank large quantities of lemon juice and sugar. Why is it mentioned here? To keep their body stabilized. Yes, when we go higher and higher, we'll be in a deficit of supply of oxygen. Naturally, we'll be feeling suffocated. Somehow, this lemon juice and sugar will keep our breath up to a comfortable zone. And not only that, they along with lemonade, they had a tin of sardine. Sardine means again, it's a kind of fish. It is tinned, means it is cooked and preserved in oil. நம்ம ஊறுகாய் சொல்லல ஊறுகாய்ன்றது நல்ல ஆயிலில் ஊறினா தான் அந்த டேஸ்ட். அந்த மாதிரி இந்த சார்டைன்ஸ்ன்றது இட் இஸ் அ ஃபிஷ். இட் இஸ் ப்ரிசர்வ்ட் இன் ஆயில் அண்ட் வெனிகர். ஏன்னா அது நிறைய நாள் நம்ம ப்ரிசர்வ் பண்ணுனா கட்டாயம் நிறைய ஆயில் வெனிகரும் ஆட் பண்ணியிருப்பாங்க. Yes, and biscuits. So what did they have when they started the journey on May 29th? uh, they had large quantities of lemonade with sugar and a tin of sardine along with biscuits. Then what else he says? And he says that only these two people, they were able to get into their tent. Their tent was very small. It can accommodate only these two people, Hilary and Tenzing. So all their things, they were having a backpack, I said. So all their things were kept outside the tent naturally because of the falling of snow. Everything were covered with snow. So what he did, he just dragged his oxygen set, then cleaned the eyes of them. Next, he has left his boots outside the tent. So he took the boots, which was also frozen. These boots are made of leather. So naturally, when a leather thing is left out in the snow, it gets frozen. So what Hilary and Tenzing did, they took their boots and they cooked on over the fierce flame. Cooked. How come a shoe be cooked, a boots be cooked? They just showed on the flame. நீங்க அந்த தப்பு எல்லாம் வாசிப்பாங்க பார்த்தீங்களா? அந்த மிருகத்துடைய தோலை போர்த்தின இன்ஸ்ட்ருமெண்ட்ஸ், மிருதங்கமாக இருக்கட்டும், அதெல்லாம் அந்த தப்பு வாசிப்பாங்க. முக்கியமாக பறை இதெல்லாம் வாசிக்கிறப்ப என்ன ஆகும்னா, அது லூஸ் ஆயிரும். அந்த ஸ்கின் வந்து டைலாபிட்டேட்டட். நீங்கள் 11th ஃபஸ்ட் லெசன் ஞாபகம் இருக்குன்னா உங்களுக்கு ஞாபகம் இருக்கும், அந்த போர்ட்ரேட் ஆஃப் லேடி. அந்த லாஸ்ட் சீனில் அந்த கிராண்ட் மதர் ஷில் பி பிளேயிங் அ டைலாபிட்டேட்டட் ட்ரம்ன்னு நான் சொல்லியிருப்பேன். அந்த டைலாபிட்டேட்டடுன்றது என்னன்னா, அப்படியே துவண்டு போயிடும். அப்போ துவண்டு போனது இந்த ஃப்ளேமில் காமிக்கிறப்ப என்ன ஆகுமா, இட் வில் பிகம் ஸ்டிஃப். So here the frozen boots, the boots which was made of leather, it was showed over the flame, fierce flame. இங்க அந்த ஸ்டவ்ன்ற வார்த்தை சொல்லல, அதுக்கு மேல என்ன வார்த்தை சொல்லிருக்காங்க, primus. Primus is a stove and managed to soften them. So now when the boots were shown on the primus over the flame, it became soft. Then they wore the clothing. What kind of clothing? Windproof clothing. Windproof clothing. So it is like a jerkin. The windproof clothing oda மூணு pairs of gloves wear பண்றாங்க. First silk, அப்புறம் woolen, அப்புறம் windproof. மூணு gloves, and along with their backpack they started their journey. For time என்ன, at 6:30 a.m. we crawled out of that tent. At 6:30 a.m. we crawled out of the tent into the snow, hoisted our 30 lb. lb is pound. lb na enna, pound. பவுண்டுன்றது எடை. எத்தனை கேஜி பேபி அப்படின்னு நம்ம சொல்கிறோம். இப்போ குழந்தை பிறந்தப்ப இட் இஸ் 3 kgs. அது பவுண்டில் அவங்க சொல்கிறாங்க. ஸோ 30, இங்கே எல்பின்றது பவுண்ட் of oxygen gear on to our backs, connected our mask and turned on the valves to bring life-giving oxygen into our lungs. So nowadays we are very familiar with one word, that is a patient who is affected by COVID. We say that they are kept on ventilator. The patient is surviving because of supporting devices. Here, oxygen, they take oxygen cylinder, put it on their back, then next what they do, connected up our mask. Here they were covering their face, and the oxygen mask, as you would have seen, which will cover our nose and mouth, turned on the valves to bring life-giving oxygen into our lungs. So they were having a difficulty in breathing. So these people, they just turned on the oxygen gear, and a connection was given so that it will be comfortable for them to breathe oxygen. Right? A few good deep breaths and we are ready to go. Still a little worried about my cold feet, I asked Tenzing to move off. So Hilary was asked Tenzing to move off because his feet was very chill, and because of chillness we get numbness. கால் மரத்து போயிடும் இல்லையா, ஐஸ்லே ஒன்றும் இல்லை, நம்ம ஃப்ரீசரில் கொஞ்சம் நேரம் போய் கையை வச்சு பாருங்க, கையெல்லாம் மரத்து போயிடுது. ஸோ திஸ் Hilary's foot was somewhat numb. because of that cold climate. So he requested Tenzing to lead the team to move forward. Tenzing kicked steps in a long traverse. Traverse means to cross a mountain slope horizontally or diagonally. Horizontally or diagonally. Tenzing kicked steps in a long traverse. See, these were the boots they were wearing. You could see spikes beneath the boots. Spikes. கீழே பாருங்க. நீங்க ஸ்போர்ட்ஸ்லலாம் பார்த்தீங்கன்னா ஃபுட்பால்லலாம் கீழே ஸ்பைக்ஸ் இருக்கும். ஷூ கீழே முள்ளு முள் மாதிரியா இருக்கும். Why? It is for a grip. And this boots is specially made for climbing mountains. So they definitely need a grip when they are climbing a glacier, a snow-covered peak. Yes, now Tenzing kicked steps in a long traverse back towards the ridge, and we reached its crest form from where it forms a great snow bump at about 28,000 feet. Hilary requested Tenzing to move forward, and Tenzing kicked steps in a long traverse. Traverse is your travel. You can easily take it as travel back towards the ridge. What is a ridge? Already I told you. What is a ridge? Ridge is a chain of hills and mountains. Ridge is a chain of hills and mountains. We reached its crest. Crest is the highest point of the hill. What is a crest? Crest is the highest point of the hill where it forms a great snow bump. Bump means is like a speed break or made at about 28,000 feet. From here, the ridge narrowed. The ridge is a chain of hills and mountains. The ridge narrowed to a knife edge, and as my feet were now warm, I took over the lead. So for some time, Tenzing was taking over the lead, and Hilary was a little bit far from him. And now Hilary gathered some strength to move ahead. Ahead of whom? Ahead of Tenzing. Now this Hilary was a bit comfortable to traverse, to mountaineer. The soft snow made a route on top of the ridge, both difficult and dangerous, which sometimes held my weight but often gave way suddenly. See the sentence? It goes on for 3 lines, but just go through it. The soft snow. The snow is soft. Hope you'd have seen the movie Home Alone during a Christmas season. And in Western countries, during Christmas season, there will be lots of snow falling. Yes, and people they used to just collect the snow, make it into a ball. And hope you all know Jack Frost. Jack Frost, a doll which is made of snow. They used to make a ball and they used to play. Even in our country, in a big mall, in malls, we can find a snow entertainment place. So here, when they were climbing on the Mount Everest, the snow was very soft. Soft. It was not hard. The snow was soft, made a route on the top of the ridge, both difficult and dangerous. Since it's very soft, என்னாகுது கால் வச்சோன்னா அது உள்ள பதிய ஆரம்பிக்குது. See, after a rain, how do we feel when we walk on a sand or on a mud? If the road is not properly maintained, there will be sand and mud. Yes, how do we feel? When we stamp on the wet mud, what happens? It gives way and our foot goes inside the sand or mud. Similarly here, the soft snow made a route on top of the ridge, both difficult and dangerous, which sometimes held my weight but often gave way suddenly. Held my weight. At some point, they were feeling comfortable, and sometimes the snow was so soft that what happens? It just gave way, means his leg was caught inside the snow. Now, உங்களுக்கு first few slides avalanche அப்படின்னு நான் ஒன்று காமிச்சேன் இல்லையா? People used to go skiing. Skatingனா நமக்கு தெரியும். அந்த ஸ்கேட்டிங் ஷூ கீழே சக்கரம் இருக்கும். அப்போ அந்த ரோட்ல போகும், பிளேன் சர்ஃபேஸ்ல. தட் இஸ் ஸ்கேட்டிங். And what is skiing? Skiingன்றது ஐஸ்ல போறது தான் skiing நம்ம சொல்லுவோம். So if you have watched the skiing match, people will be skiing from big mountains and hills, and suddenly there will be an avalanche because it will give way. Many people were moving. If they were moving very fast, it will give way and there will be an avalanche. Yes, here he says, but often gave way suddenly. After several hundred feet, we came to a tiny hollow and found there the two oxygen bottles left on the earlier attempt by Evans and Baudelaire. Take down these names because it will be good for you to write when you're writing a paragraph. So on their way, they come across a cave. Caveன்றது என்ன? குகை. அந்த கேவ்ல பார்க்குறப்ப they happen to see two oxygen bottles. யார் விட்டுட்டு போயிருக்கா? அப்ப இவங்களுக்கு முன்னாடி யாரோ போனாங்க, but they were not, those people were not able to complete their task of reaching Mount Everest. Who were they? இவங்களுக்கு முன்னாடி ட்ரை பண்ணது Evans and Baudelaire. So அந்த two oxygen bottles பார்த்தோன்னே உங்களுக்கு ரொம்ப சந்தோஷம் ஆயிருது, because that is the thing which is more expected. What is need for a man to breathe? Oxygen is needed, is it not? So this I refers to Hilary because he is the one who is narrating this. I scraped the eyes of the gauge and was relieved to find that they still contained several hundred liters of oxygen, enough to get us down to the South Pole if used sparingly. What is sparingly? Very less. So they took the oxygen gauge and they scratched the eyes and they found that several hundred liters of oxygen was there in that oxygen cylinder. And what he says, if we use it sparingly, definitely it can be used for the whole journey. I continued making the trail on up the ridge, leading up for the last 400 feet to the southern summit. The snow on this phase was dangerous, but we persisted in our efforts to beat a trail up it. Trail means ஒத்தையடி பாதை. அதை பாதை அமைச்சு நாங்க போக ட்ரை பண்ணி போய்கிட்டு இருந்தோம். I continued making the trail on up the ridge. திருப்பி நான் சொல்றேன், what is a ridge? A chain of hills and mountains leading up to the for the last 400 feet to the southern summit. Summit is the highest point. The snow on this phase was dangerous. There was heavy snow. Anytime if they are a bit careless, what will happen? They'll be just submerged in that snow. So the snow was very soft, and he said in the previous paragraph, it gave way suddenly. The snow on this phase was dangerous, but we persisted, we continued very strongly with strong determination in our efforts to beat a trail up it. We just made a way. We made a way and we started moving up. We made frequent changes of lead. So we made frequent changes. Sometimes Hilary was on the lead and sometimes Tenzing was on the lead. நாங்கள் ஒருத்தருக்கு ஒருத்தர் முன்னாடி பின்னாடி நடக்க ஆரம்பித்தோம். As I was stamping a trail in the deep snow, a section around me gave way and I slipped back through 3 or 4 of my steps. I discussed with Tenzing the advisability of going on, and he, although admitting that he felt unhappy about the snow condition, and finished with his familiar phrase, just as you wish. So Tenzing was a very, very good partner to this Hilary. See, when you are when you want to walk for a long time, a companion is needed, is it not? To make your journey comfortable, to make your journey smooth, to give you comfort in words, both physically and emotionally. There is a companion is needed. So he says, when I was stamping a trail in the deep snow, a section around me gave way and I slipped back through 3 or 4 of my steps. I discussed with Tenzing the advisability of going on, and although he admitting that he felt unhappy about the snow condition, and finished with his familiar phrase, just as you wish. இப்படி ஆயிருச்சு, பயமா இருக்கு, நம்மளால முடிக்க முடியுமா, நிறைய கேள்விகள் ஹிலாரி மனசுல. அப்ப டென்சிங் என்ன சொல்றாரு? just as you wish. நீ என்ன சொல்றியோ அப்படி செய்யலாம்ப்பா. shall we continue அப்படின்னு, just as you wish. I decided to go on. Now Hilary says that he decided to go on, and we finally reached firmer snow higher up. and then chipped steps up the last steep slopes and cramponed on to the south peak. It was now 9 a.m. So there was a lot of variations in the fall of snow. There were a lot of variations in the fall of snow. Somewhere, in some places, the snow was soft. It was very difficult for them. As they move a bit higher, the snow became firm, very hard. Yes, up the last steep slopes and cramponed. Crampon means with that shoes they were having spike like thing. Now with crampon means the spikes is called as crampon. On to the south peak. It was now 9 a.m. காலையில 4 மணிக்கு உங்க ஜேர்னியை லெமனேடு பாக்ஸ் ஆஃப் சார்டைனு பிஸ்கெட்ஸோட ஆரம்பிச்சு இப்போ டைம் என்ன 9 a.m. 9 a.m.க்கு how many hours they have traveled from 4 to 9, nearly 5 hours. இப்போ ஸ்னோ நல்ல ஸ்ட்ராங்காக இருக்கு. அவங்க போட்டிருக்க ஷூ it is giving a good grip. We cut a seat for ourselves just below the south summit and removed our oxygen apparatus. Now they just wanted to relax for something. They have walked for nearly 5 hours. How tired they would have become. Their legs would have been so painful, is it not? Walking on the road itself, we feel very tired. Imagine walking on a chill, snow falling mountain. How difficult it would be, is it not? We cut a seat for ourselves just below the south summit. Cut a seat because everywhere there were ice, and this ice is not soft. It has become harder, gripper. So they just cut a seat for themselves and removed their oxygen apparatus because it was quite heavy for them to carry. Yes. Now they just kept it down as our first partly full bottle of oxygen was now exhausted. We had only one full bottle left. So one bottle they had on their own. The other one they found it half the way. Is it not? Now they had with them. Our apparatus was now much lighter, weighing just over 20 lb. Before we could see that they were carrying 30 lb. lb is pound. Now since one apparatus is exhausted, the oxygen in one apparatus is exhausted, they have just 20 lb. And as I cut steps down the south summit, I felt a sense of freedom and well-being. இப்போ அப்படின்ட்டு ஒரு வெயிட்டை இறக்கணுன்னு ஒரு பெருமூச்சு. they gave a big sigh. ஒரு பெருமூச்சு. எவ்வளோ நல்லா இருக்கு. இப்போ வெயிட் குறைச்சு நம்ம I'm going to I feel that I have got great freedom. I can move forward. So they just continue the journey. See, this is the hammer-like thing through which they used to cut the ice. The picture here is given. This is a hammer like axe, something like axe. Yes, to cut or break the ice. As my ice axe. So this is an ice axe. Ice axe hit into the first steep slope of the ridge. What is a ridge? It is a chain of hills or mountains. My high hopes were realized. The snow was crystalline and firm. So first he was telling that the snow was soft. Now he is telling that the snow has become so crystalline and firm, very strong. 2 or 3 blows of ice axe produced a steep large enough even for our oversized high altitude boots, and firm thrust of the ice axe would sink it halfway up the shaft, giving a solid and comfortable belay. So what he says is, if I started to hit the axe heavily on the ice, what will happen? It will give way, and naturally, what will happen? They'll be just pulled into the ice, and it will be very difficult for them to come out. So they were facing a very tough time. Though they had high altitude boots, the boots were strong. It has crampon beneath, but still they were so frightened. Yes, we moved one at a time. I would cut a 40-foot line of steps, tensing, belaying me while I worked. Helped me. Belaying me means he helped me when I worked. Then in turn, I would sink my shaft and put a new loops of rope around it. New loops of rope around it, the place. Somehow to catch something and climb. இல்லையா மலை ஏறப்ப இந்த கம்பி கம்பியா இருக்கும், அதை கயர்ல கட்டி தூக்கி போடுவாங்க. அது ஏதாச்சும் ஒரு இடத்துல grip பிடிச்சா தானே இவங்க அதை பிடிச்சிட்டு ஏற முடியும். So they were doing all these things to climb the mountain. And Tenzing, protected against a breaking step, would move up to me. Then once again, as he belayed me, I would go on cutting. So they both were helping each other on their journey to Mount Everest, the summit. In number of places, the overhanging ice cornices. Cornice. See, I have given you the meaning. Cornice means overhanging mass of snow or ice along the ridge shaped like the curling crest of a wave. Curling crest of a wave. நம்ம ஃப்ரிட்ஜில் ரொம்ப நாள் நம்ம வந்து டீஃப்ராஸ்ட் பண்ணாமல் இருந்தோம்னா ஃப்ரீசரில் பார்த்தீங்கன்னா அப்படி குச்சி குச்சியாக ஐஸ் தொங்கும் இல்லையா, தட் இஸ் கால் cornice. குச்சி குச்சியாக ஐஸ் இருக்கு இல்லையா, தட் இஸ் cornice, a roof. இங்கே cornice, overhanging mass of snow ice along a ridge shaped like the curling crest of a wave, அலை போல. சரியா? In a number of places, the overhanging ice cornices were very large indeed, and in order to escape them, I cut a line of steps down where the snow met the rocks on the west. It was a great thrill to look straight down this enormous rock face and to see 8,000 feet below us. They climbed 27,900. Now they are so high. After that, they just look down and see 8,000 feet below them. They climbed so high. It was so chill. Amidst all difficulties, sometimes the ice gave way and they were about to get trapped in the ice. But still, they continued their journey with great difficulty. Yes, we were so proud to see that we were 8,000, that is 8,000 feet below us. The tiny tents of Camp 4 in the Western Com, CWM should be pronounced as Com. Com means an enclosed armchair-shaped hollow situated at the head of the valley. Valley na pallatakku. Head of the valley in என்னது காம்ன்றது ஒரு chair-shaped hollow chair-shaped place. ஸோ இங்கே இந்த வெஸ்டர்ன் காமில் கேம்ப் 4 அங்கே சின்ன சின்ன டென்ட்ஸ் போட்டிருக்கிறத பார்க்க முடியுது. இவ்வளோ உயரத்துலேருந்து கீழே அவங்க பார்க்குறாங்க. Scrambling on the rocks and cutting handholds on the snow, we were able to shuffle past these difficult portions. Somehow, they were scrambling means climbing hurriedly on hands and knees. With hands and knees, அப்படின்றப்ப என்ன, தவழ்ந்து போகிறது, கையையும் முட்டியும் வச்சு தவழ்ந்து போகிறது. ஏன்னா உயரம் ஆக 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 they were feeling very difficult to walk. Now they scrambled. Scrambled means they were moving with their hands and knees, scrambling on the rocks and cutting handholds on the snow. We were able to shuffle past these difficult portions. Somehow we were able to manage and cross these portions. We'll stop here. We'll continue in the next class. Thank you, students.